Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to be talking about the UFC 321 Aftermath. Now let's get into the main event, which started off great, very competitive, some jabs, both guys landed some good shots, and then the fucking eye poke of nightmares happened. Cyril Gane, again, gorgeous 4 fingers. He was fucking two, like kind of like this, into Tom Aspinall's eyes. And unfortunately, he's unable to continue the fight because he cannot see. And a lot of people are back and forth online about this. Some people was like, oh, you should have sucked it up and just continued fighting. Nope, I don't think that's how that works. Tom could not see, and he said he barely could see out of his other eye. Why would he, in round 1, risk that? Because then he goes and gets knocked out, and it's like, oh, Tom was just hype. Cyril Gane was always a great fighter. It was only John Jones who could beat the great Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou. So yeah, no. But I did see a little update from Tom Aspinall's official YouTube channel. The doctor that they saw, he said there's no like bad damage, but it's still like in the healing process, and they still need to do another checkup, and hopefully it just keeps healing and it gets better. But there's no serious damage from the eye poke. So he's still in a lot of pain. His vision is not very clear, but it will get better. That's just from that little update. We'll probably only get an update again next week on what his vision looks like. But if everything is good, A-OK, and he can start training, hopefully we can get that call, see Tom back ASAP. Dana's already said they're going to rebook it. There might be some little spite from Tom being like, I don't want to fight him, I'll rather fight Volkov. But I do think that's going to get booked. So I'm hoping it gets booked in December or potentially January or February. But December would be ideal because then Tom can go into the new year defending. And you've got that Pereira fight looming, which Pereira doesn't really want to fight Tom. He wants to fight John Jones, which you can't strip the heavyweight belt from them. So I'm assuming what is going to potentially happen, I think I spoke about this in the last Aftermath, is probably Pereira and Jones for some sort of interim buff fight. If Jones wins, he's just going to fucking retire again. So there's no point in giving him having that fight as an interim fight. If Pereira wins, great. You can set up Pereira and Tom, but yeah, I don't know. That fight's probably going to get booked. The biggest loser of that fight is probably Volkov, because now he has to wait longer to get a title shot. But anyway, let's move on to the co-main event of the evening, where we did get to crown a champion at the end of that one. Mackenzie Dern gets the victory over Werner. I can't say her last name. I'll try it for you guys. Jandiroba. Let me know in the comments down below how I did with that one. But anyway, Mackenzie Dern gets that dub. She's now the new champion. What is next for the new champion? The reason they set this fight up was because they were like, okay, Werner, number 1 contender, makes sense. And then they kind of wanted to put Mackenzie in there because they thought this fight had a lot of like storyline, which I think was a good fight. I enjoyed the fight. So who do you give Mackenzie next to her as a first defense? This is a very 50-50 thing, because I think it can go one of two ways. You either give her someone who's still in the division, or depending on what happens with Wei Li and Shevchenko, you could have Wei Li come back down and fight for a belt again, which I can see the UFC doing that just because she was such a dominant champion. If Shevchenko beats her, I think there's a potential world where she goes, fuck it, I'm just going to go back and I'll fight Mackenzie and get my belt back. I don't know if she's going to be like, okay, Shevchenko beat me, I'll fight some of these other guys, these other girls over here and get another title shot. I don't know if that's what she'll do. So that's an option 1. I do think Weili's gonna beat Shevchenko, but we'll talk about that when we have to talk about that fight. So it's either that or you get Mackenzie Dern versus the next number one contender on the list, which in my opinion is Tatiana Suarez. She's only got one defeat on her record, and that is against Weili. And she just came off a victory against Amanda Lemos, I think. So give her the title shot. She's number 2 ranked. Makes fucking sense. Then what do you do with Werner? Werner, I'd probably say it's very difficult because now Mackenzie's got 2 wins over her. So you can't really have a trilogy fight unless she absolutely sleeps the whole division. So I would probably go with either... I got the names on this list like right here. That's why I'm kind of leaning to the side. I would either go with Isman Lucindio or Tabitha Ritchie. Whichever one the UFC want to kind of market more. It sets up a title fight. Now you might be wondering, why the hell are you going for 7 and 8? Because Werner's beat all of the other ones. And you can't give her fucking Tatiana, because if she beats Tatiana, you fuck the whole division up. And then Mackenzie doesn't have an opponent, essentially. So, yeah, that's what I would do. Give her someone she hasn't fought yet. If they win, there's a new contender for Mackenzie. If Mackenzie beats Tatiana. So yeah, that's what I would do. Next fight we have Umar and Mario Batista. Umar got the victory by decision. This was a very good fight. I really enjoyed this fight. I'm going to give props here to Mario. It was a lot more competitive than what I thought it was. I thought Umar was going to come in here and ragdoll him a little bit and then just find like a sub or something and get him out of there. I even bet for Umar sub, but Mario was very good. And I think Mario walking out of this fight is not going to be like, fuck man, got dominated. I think he'll walk out of this fight with his head up and be like, okay, I know I can beat Umar. I know I can beat Marab. I now know what that level looks like, and I can definitely improve and get a dub against them the next time I see one of them, which I do think can happen. I generally do think he can get a win over Umar with a little bit more wins on his belt. But yeah, so who do you give Umar next? I think you have to give him a rematch for the title against Merab. I think Merab will beat Pirian. I kind of feel you have to give Umar the Merab rematch. It just makes more sense. Otherwise, you just have Umar sitting there waiting. And if you give him O'Malley, he's just going to beat O'Malley, and you kind of don't want O'Malley to go on another loss. You kind of want to rebuild O'Malley. So yeah, I would give Umar the next title shot. Probably going to be early next year because Merab is super fucking active. He's probably going to fight in December and be like, let's go January, let's go. Or February, I take Umar's head off again. He's fucking crazy. You'll probably want to try and break his fucking title defense record next year. That's how fucking crazy Merab is. But he's so active. But yeah, I can see that fight happening very earlier. And then Mario, what do you do with Mario? I have 2 names for him, and this is going to be depending on who O'Malley's fighting. I'm hearing a lot of fucking rumors that he might fight Song Yadong, because Song Yadong has been out for so long. I think a fun fight for O'Malley could be against Corey Sandhagen. I would say whichever one you give O'Malley, give the other one to Mario Batista. Puts him up in that top 5. And I'm not saying then he fights someone in the top 3 or he fights a Peter Yan. You can then say Figueroa can fight him. You can then kind of like play around with it. But that's what I would do for Mario Batista. I would give him either Corey Sandhagen or Song Yadong. Then it gets him up there in the top 5 because I think he did fight very well. Let's move on to the next fight, which was the heavyweight. It was in the heavyweight division. Volkov versus Jolton Almeida, and damn, that was kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. I do love that the decision went to Volkov because I do think the refs giving these fucking grapplers or wrestlers wins when all they do is take the guy down and just lie there and sit on them is bullshit. It's boring. It's he's not trying to win the fight. And yes, you can go back to the Hamzat fight. At least with Hamzat, he was throwing something. It might have not been the best fucking shots in the world, but he was at least like, hey, look, I'm hitting him. I'm hitting him. Look. Jolton didn't fucking want to do nothing. He just wanted to hold him and be there and be on top of him, and just that's all he wanted to do. And I'm glad Volkov was just landing strikes on him and getting the better on those exchanges on the floor when he was on his back, which is crazy to think that Volkov did more damage to Jolton when he was on his back than when Jolton had the dominant position. He had fucking almost 11 minutes control time. You know how crazy that is to have 11 minutes of control time and you barely did anything to Volkov. So yeah, I'm happy with that decision. It shows and proves to people, hey, you can't just fucking do that and get a win. You need to do shit when you're in those positions, or try and go for subs, do something, not just lie there and be like, well, I'm winning because I have the position. So yeah, what's next for Volkov? Probably title fight. Unfortunately for him, because it's a no contest, he's gonna have to fucking wait longer. Frustrating for him, but I think you give him a title shot next. I'm sure he doesn't mind sitting and waiting. Jolton Almeida, I think you got to kind of like, you can't reward him for that. That's a shit fight, let's be honest. Beautiful takedowns. He was really, really good at taking Volkov down, but he just fucking did nothing. And that is disappointing, because I actually thought Jolton would do a lot better. I know I predicted Volkov to win. I didn't think he would win like that though. But so there's two things. If you really still kind of want to push Jolton, you can give him Pavlovich, who's ranked third. But I feel like you're kind of rewarding him for a loss. So that just doesn't make sense. You're kind of more punishing Pavlovich for that performance. I think you give in number 10, Tibera. I think it's a winnable fight for Jolton. You can kind of show, okay, look, I'm still a bad motherfucker, even though I lost like that. I can still fucking compete. And then you kind of let him work around. There's some other activity with some of the other heavyweights here in December, November. So if you give him that fight and those fights have been settled, then you can kind of make some moves in the division. Or you can kind of just sit and wait and see. But as of now, because the other fights have kind of been made, that's kind of what I would go for. You can do the Derek Lewis one, but I don't see the point of doing that, because I think he'll just easily take Derek Lewis down. At least with Tibera. Tibera's got some wrestling and some submission wins, so it's a little bit more kind of competitiveness in that grappling exchanges. So yeah, maybe. I think that what I would do with Derek Lewis is probably Curtis Blades too, because he's got a win over Curtis Blades. So maybe Curtis wants that win back. I don't know. I don't know what Curtis Blades wants to do, because he's already beat Jolton, so making that a rematch is kind of stupid. But anyway, let's move on from that. Let's go to the light heavyweight division, where we have Rakitic, who I predict to win, because I just thought he had all the advantages in the fight against Azmat. I can't say his name last time. I'm not going to even try. So, you know what? I'll go for it. Muzarkanov. Let me know in the comments how I did with that one. What would you do over here? Before we do that, let me just talk a little bit about it. I thought Rakitic kind of did exactly what I thought he was going to do in the beginning. But I don't know what happened. He stood in the center, and I don't know if he got too cocky, or like, oh, my game plan's kind of working. He's throwing and missing. I'm landing these kicks, and I'm kind of doing my thing. Yeah, he stood still, and the second he stood still, he just got hit with it looked like a fucking jab, and boom, dropped him, and that was it. Dropped him, went on him, had landed a few, and game over. So what do you do with the as a reward for beating Rakitic? I think you give him Jamal Hill. The other guys are kind of active right now. I don't think you give him Khalil Roundtree. I think Khalil Roundtree needs a good win under his belt. Like, you need to give him someone that he can get that win, like a Dominic Reyes. I think that's a perfect match for Khalil Roundtree. I don't think you give Azmat him. I think you give him Jamal Hill. I think it's a good win. It would be a good match for him. He's obviously now 7th. He'll only got one up. But by the time that he's had that matchup with Jamal, there's already some movement in the division, and then he can go, okay, well, now I'll go for that guy. And then Rakitic, I think you give him Johnny Walker. I think Johnny Walker really did well in his last fight, so kind of reward him with giving him someone who's now going to be 8th, I believe. And Johnny Walker can kind of have this little resurgence in the lightweight division of having a bit of a comeback to try and get a title shot. And you do that. I think that's what you do. Well, that is the aftermath for the main card. I do want to do a little bit of a shout out to the lightweight division in Skull Kid. That knockout was fucking insane. That head kick. Jesus, I thought he killed the guy. I'm not gonna lie. He was lying there and his eyes was like rolled in the back of his head. I thought Nazareth was dead. And then he didn't move. And then as soon as they started the interview, I was like, or they did like, hey, what about knockout? I was like, okay, he must be good. And then they panned the camera and he's sitting up. I'm like, okay, thank God. He looked like he died. But anyway, what would I give this, like, overall? I think if the main event went on and, like, it was an absolute banging fight, this could have been a 9 out of 10. But it's a disappointing ending. Cyril fights with his fucking hands open the whole time. So it's a little bit of a disappointment, but I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. I watched every single fight. I thought the fights were very good. There was a funny moment I do also want to mention where Walter Walker called out, is it Hamli? Yeah, Hamdi. Hamdi beat Chris Barnett, which was kind of a terrible fight. And Walter Walker was like, you beat the Peppa Pig, the black Peppa Pig. Now I want to fight you. And I'm like, why the hell do you want to fight a guy that's not ranked? You're a ranked fighter. But hey, he wants to fight, let him fight him. And Hamley apparently says, fucking bring it on. Apparently they both said they'll do the fight. So I don't know when they're going to do that, but yeah, that's it for the UFC 321 Aftermath, and we'll see you guys in the next Aftermath video. Peace.